Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Think Your Way to an Epic Life. And I've got such a huge treat for you today. This is a person, one of my favorite people on the planet, honestly. Seriously, I got to work for this guy directly for over a year, and he taught me so much. He is an amazing human, and he has so much to teach us. So, Dusty Oglesby, thank you so much for joining me today.
Kara, absolutely. I'm so honored to be with you. I love you. I know you know that. And I'll say you didn't work for me, partner. You worked with me. We were able to um, grow with each other. We were able to grow so many people's lives and their businesses and their hearts. And so I'm excited to spend the next little bit with you and pour into anybody who's out there listening. So.
Awesome. Well, for the people who are not Keller Williams, there is a program in Keller Williams and it's called Bold. And it is kind of the cornerstone of KW and why KW agents are really so amazing. And Bold is now run by my buddy, Dusty Oglesby, for the entire Keller Williams crew. And he's also a fabulous Bold coach. He's a very wonderful family man. He's just a great guy. So, Dusty, let's start off with where were you born and where'd you grow up?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was born in this huge city called Colorado City, Texas. And you have to say it like that, Carrie. You can't say Colorado because that's not what it is. It's Colorado City, Texas. So it was this tiny little town in West Texas. My dad was a pastor there. We moved to San Angelo before I even knew what the world was. So I don't even think I was one. We moved to San Angelo, Texas, where my dad pastored another church there in West Texas. And we were there for 10 years. And then we moved to Abilene, Texas, where my dad pastored for 18 years. And so I really spent most of my memories, most of my really upbringing and lessons learned and all the above really, I think, started in Abilene. Like those are, I remember a little bit about San Angelo. I remember a lot of it about Abilene. And that's where I was really molded and learned. So that was, if you ask me where home is, I always say Abilene. So,
Well, I got to
and
tell you, I lived in Abilene twice,
yeah.
and it was the most pleasant. I felt so safe, and it was just a great place. Now it's been a long time ago, but it's just a
Yeah.
great place. I've got nothing but good to say, or
Yeah.
no feelings but good about that time
Yeah.
I had there.
Yeah. Well, I loved it. I had a great childhood. So I had two parents who, um, I get emotional, but loved me super well. Um, was there for everything, right? So I was raised super well, super well. I am who I am today because of them.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Being a preacher's kid. I just got to hear some up. Did you ever have to go into the church to look for somebody's pocketbook at night or any of that kind of stuff?
Oh man, being a preacher's kid, gosh, we could do a whole series of podcasts on that, Kara. I'm super thankful for it. When I think about um, the gift that the Lord's given me today to be in the seat that I'm in and be a bold coach and be able to help so many people. All of that, the fabric of that started right at Hillcrest Baptist Church in San Angelo, Texas, and then Calvary Baptist Church in Abilene, Texas. I mean, from the time I can remember, I was with people and not just in front of people. I mean, like I was with people, right? Like, and one of the coolest things I'll say about my upbringing is my parents, even though I was a pastor's kid, they never made me go, which I always thought was so awesome, right? Like my dad was always like, look, that you're gonna choose, right? Now, of course, when I was like little, right? Like I went, but I'm just saying, like as I came into my own middle school, high school, they gave me the space to to lean in. They never said, hey, you have to be a leader in the youth group, or you have to go to a mission trip or anything like that. It was always a choice that they gave us. And so, that part was incredible. I think the coolest part, though, Kara, was just the exposure that it gave me to all people. I learned at an early age just to love people, right? I mean, you've heard me talk about this before. I mean, like my dad in particular, like I just never seen anybody love people like that. It didn't matter what color you were. It didn't matter where you came from. It didn't matter even if he didn't speak your language. He just loved people. And so that was just ingrained in me, I think from day one. And so I was exposed to people that didn't look like me, and people that didn't talk like me, people that didn't think like me. And it just taught me so much. And so, now there were also parts of being a preacher's kid that I allowed to not be healthy for me. Like I always thought, well, I have to be on my A game, right? Nobody ever told me that, but I always felt that way. I always felt like, hey, I can't make a mistake, or I can't really tell somebody if I've struggled or messed up. And so it took me really into my adult years to realize that that was something that I had put on myself. And a lot of freedom came when I let go of that. Hey, I don't have to impress people or be what they think I should be. Like I've got to draw the circle around me and be who that is. So it was incredible, though. I loved it.
That is so cool. All right. So that was your growing up. Graduated high school, I'm assuming?
Yes. Yeah.
What happened next?
I did. That's a great question. So I got a full scholarship to play tennis at the University of Southern Colorado. And, at 18 years old, right, I was like, I'm going to get out of here, right? I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go to Colorado. And I didn't put really a whole lot of thought or prayer or ask for advice or anything in that, Kara. I went on just kind of emotion, and went on like I'd worked really hard as a tennis player to earn that. And I got there, and it was the first time in my life I was ever alone. And I got scared. And in my fear, I never even really gave it a shot. I just left. It was uncomfortable. I didn't like it. And so, right, like looking back, hindsight's always 20/20, right? Looking back, I'm like, man, I wonder how different life would have been had I stayed. I didn't step into my fear or my pain at that time. I gave in. I actually came back home and went to school at Hardin Simmons, which was right in my hometown of Abilene. That's where I was known, where I felt good. It was still by design, right? And that there was a purpose and a path to it. And so I ended up playing tennis at that Division III school, and which was kind of awesome because I was a rock star in Division III tennis, because I was a Division I level player and I was playing Division III. So that kind of fed me, right? And at that time thought, I'm going to follow in the steps of my dad. I'm going to be in ministry. I'm going to get my degree. And so my degree, I loved college. My degree is in biblical studies and theology. And that's what I thought, right? Like I thought I'll be a pastor, what's funny, Kara, is when people ask me what I do today, I tell them I'm like a little real estate preacher, because I do get to pour into people's lives just in a different environment, right? So ultimately all of those things I went through there, right? Like preaching class served me well. Right. So it all just kind of all of those things I look back and go, hey, it's how I got where I got. Graduated there, and went into what I thought was what I was going to do forever, which was, vocational ministry like that. And so that's what I did coming out of college. That was it. So, yeah.
And how long were you a minister?
So, I was I would say I've been a minister my whole life, right? Even as a bowl coach, right? To me, that's who I am. Like that's my fabric. At 16 years old, I knew that I was called to love people, serve people, and help people. I knew that unequivocally, not a doubt in my mind. This is my calling. And so I was in what we would call vocational ministry for about 10 years. I was on staff at a church. I was on staff at a few churches. Ended up being a high school Bible teacher as well, which was super cool. I love that job. And then was promoted early as a 26-year-old young man to be the dean of students at a Christian school. And then, Carrie, you didn't ask me this, but then that for me is where life fell apart. I had spent my whole life searching to feel good and searching to feed. Early on in those days, I did ministry. I did do ministry to help people. I also did ministry because a lot of it was about me, how it made me feel. And I had a season of my life there where I made bad decisions, didn't walk in the manner that I desire to walk, especially in the manner that I walk today. And, so I was married before, went through a divorce, ended up, when you're in vocational ministry and you go through a divorce, especially because I had a lot of DNA in it, you don't continue to be dean of students at a Christian school. And so I was let go. It was the first time in my life anything like that had ever happened. And so I found myself wondering, like, what do I do? Like, all I've ever known is ministry and tennis. So what do I do? And so it was at that time I picked my tennis racket back up and became a tennis professional because I knew, hey, I can serve people in this way. And so that's what I did. Again, I was in Dallas, and so I moved back home again because that was the safe place, right? Abilene was the safe place. So I moved back home, became a tennis pro in my hometown, and I was like, hey, I'll be a tennis pro. This is what I'll do. And so that was kind of the next phase, right? So that's where I was. That was like in like 2000, 22 years ago. So
22 years ago, 23 years ago already? What?
Woo! Woo! So yeah, there you go.
Okay, so you're a tennis pro.
Mm-hmm.
How did real estate come into the picture?
Yeah, I think this is my favorite part. Kind of when I look back at my history. So I was a tennis pro in Abilene, Texas, and I was coaching this guy that worked for a Nutrina feed, an animal feed company. And I'd been coaching him for a while, and one day he just said, hey, are you going to do this for the rest of your life? And it was the first time I stopped and thought, right? I was in my 20s, so I was healthy. And I was thinking, no, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Like, I don't want to stand on a tennis court when I'm 60. And so he said, well, I want to offer you a job. And he said, do you know anything about animals or animal feed? And I said, no, I don't know anything. Absolutely nothing. And he said, well, that's okay. He said, we actually want to hire you because you're great with people. He said, we have a market area that our relationships are not good. We need somebody to come in and repair with our people. So he said, we can teach you animal feed, but we want you to heal the relationship. So I was like, I can do that. And so they hired me for this company called Cargill Animal Nutrition, Kara. I had no clue what I was doing. Absolutely not a clue in the world. It was selling animal feed. And that's how I got to Dallas. That's where I was supposed to be, was in Dallas, Texas. And so moved into my market area, started selling animal feed, and repairing all these relationships. And I did. I mean, I loved the relationships. I just hated what I was doing. It was miserable. And I moved into an apartment that backed up to a tennis center.
Ha.
So every day I would get up and I'm like, this is not what I'm called to do, man. Like I'm selling animal feed. I'm not affecting people. And so I did that for about a year and then I just quit. I was like, I'm just gonna quit. And I was gonna go back home to Abilene. Again, it was this pattern in my life, right? Like we coach, you got to see patterns. And I was gonna go back home, I was gonna run away again and start all over. And I walked over to what's called the Lakes Tennis Academy, and that's where my life radically changed. Because I said, hey, I need a job. They hired me on the spot. A guy I had met like 10 years prior in Abilene, being a tennis pro, came down the stairs when I walked over, like literally came down the stairs as I walked in. I hadn't seen this dude in 10 years. I'd only met him one time. And he said, I remember you. He said, what are you here for? And I said, man, I need a job. And he literally looked me in the face, Kara, and said, you're hired. I'm like, what?
Oh.
He goes, yeah, you're hired, dude. If you want a job, he said, I remember you. And so they hired me at the Lakes Tennis Academy. And this is where I learned hard work. I knew no one living in Frisco. I knew absolutely no one in the city. And he said, I'm going to give you an opportunity. And he said, here's what I can tell you. There's business out there, but you're going to have to go get it. And for the first time in my life, I didn't have a safety blanket. I didn't know anybody. And I was either going to have to grow up or go back home. And so I chose to lean in, and the Lord surrounded me with incredible people. And I would go to the tennis center every day at 7 o'clock, and I would just meet everybody as they walked in. I would give free tennis lessons so they could get to know who I was. I would say, hey, I know you don't know me. I'll give you a free hour. You want a free hour? And I'd get out on the court and I'd give everything I had. And so that's how I created a book of business. And so I ended up where I was coaching over 150 people a week. I was on a court 10 to 12 hours a day. And that season for me was beautiful. What I did not know is I was building an incredible database for real estate. I didn't know that, right? I was just, man, I had to make money, right? I had to find a way. And so just moved my way, on through and on up, and became one of the top pros there, and met literally the greatest people, some of the greatest people I've ever met in my life. And again, I did that for 7 years. And I remember standing on a tennis court one night. I used to go to the hospital 2 or 3 times a year, Kara, because as you can tell, I'm not a very big fella, and the sun would just beat it out of me. And so I would get dehydrated, I'd get super sick, and I'd have to go to the hospital. And for 7 years in a row, I did this. And so finally, year 7, I had gone to the hospital. It was July of 2012. I was in the hospital. I'd gone to the hospital because I got dehydrated. I'd come out. I was standing on a tennis court with one of my best buddies. His name's Andrew Painter. We call him Paints. And I said, there's got to be something more. We can't do this forever, right? He's Australian. So I said, hey, mate, we can't do this forever, mate. We're gonna die, mate. And I said, I don't want to do this forever. And he was the first one who actually said to me, why don't you do real estate? Now, I'd been coaching a girl who her dad was a real estate agent at Keller Williams. I've been coaching her for 2 years. And this guy, every single time he would bring her to a tennis lesson, would say, you got to go into real estate. You got to go into real estate. And I was like, dude, I'm not going into real estate. I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, what if people don't buy a house? I'm not doing it. I know if I stand on a tennis court, I'm going to make money. That's what I know. And he just wouldn't go away. And so standing on the court in July, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna see what this is all about. So I called him and said, let's go to lunch. His name is JD Tomlin. And JD Tomlin is the guy who recruited me to Keller Williams. And I will always and forever be thankful to that man at a level that I cannot explain, because it radically changed my life. So that literally that month, I would work on the tennis court till 9 o'clock at night. I would go home and I would do all my classes online till about midnight. I would go to sleep. So I finished all my classes in 2 weeks. I took my test, and then I made the leap in November of 2012. So left the tennis court, left all my security, and joined his team, and was on his team for the first year. And like I had said earlier, Kara, I had I spent 7 years there, so I had this massive database of people that I didn't just coach them in tennis, right? Like they were my people, right? Like I was there when some of them had tragedies in their family, and I just walked alongside them, loved them. And so I had this massive amount of trust with them. And so automatically these people just started giving me opportunity in real estate. In fact, the first sale I ever had was a $1.2 million house. They should have never used me. I had no clue what I was doing. The only reason they used me is because they trusted me. And they knew that I would care for them like nobody else would, which is part of what I coach in the Bold Room, right? Is, your business is your database. And literally my database was my lifeline. And so year one on that team, I was rookie of the year, sold 8.5 million of my own. I didn't take any business from the team. And so I was on that team for 11 months, and then realized, hey, you know what? I want to build something of my own. And so then I started building my own team from there, built my own team from there. And we ended up being, what we call at Keller Williams MREA level, millionaire real estate agent level, and built this team and loved it.
I hate to interrupt you, but I have to, because most people who hear millionaire real estate agent, they don't know what that means, because a lot of realtors have on their card $1 million producer.
Yeah.
Not the same thing. What's the difference?
That's right. Not the same thing. So a millionaire real estate agent, for us, the way we qualify that is that you've done 40 million or more. It means that you have brought in over $1 million in commissions in one calendar year, right? And, Kara, when I went into real estate, right, like I was making $60,000 a year as a tennis pro, and to make $100,000 to me was going to be like I was the richest man on the planet, right? And so to accomplish something like that with these people that the Lord had gifted to me was incredible. And yet my challenge was, in my gut, I still knew I wasn't doing what I was called to do. It was the season to lead me, though, to what I was called to do. And so the beauty of Keller Williams, right, is there's so much opportunity. And so I built that team, met my bride through that. She was our transaction coordinator. I tell everybody, Gary says, stand on your first hire. So I just married mine, locked her into a contract. So, married my bride, it's all these beautiful things that happen. Although part of the story, Kara, that's important is because I wasn't doing what I was fully called to do. And I was just running a candle at both ends. I burned out. I was grinding my teeth at night. Here we are making tons of money, right? But I didn't have any. So I wasn't operating out of systems and models. I was kind of doing everything on my own, just running kind of on my own natural talent and what we would call just my own entrepreneurial self, right? And so on the outside looking in, we looked awesome. But on the inside, I was dying to a point where, again, it was a pattern, right? To a point where I quit. I was like, I'm out. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm exhausted. I'm grinding my teeth. I don't want to do this. Got into a bad business partnership. Again, no prayer, no advice. Just did it on my own. Thought this would be a great idea. And so I just quit. I walked away. I was like, I'm not going to do it anymore. And became a title rep, which I think title reps are incredible. I'm just not a title rep.
Me neither.
It's not my life calling. Okay. So I did that for about a month. And thankfully, I had a man in my world who loved me enough to tell me the truth. And he took me to lunch one day. And he runs a massive team. And I thought we were going because I was going to get his title business. And that's not why we went. We sat down. He said, hey, I'll give you our title business. I don't care. He said, I came here to ask you, what the heck are you doing? Like you are wasting your God-given talent, your God-given calling. What are you doing? And I told him, I said, man, I failed. And I didn't know what else to do. So I just quit. And he said, you need to come back and you need to coach people, because that's who you are. You need to coach people to not do what you did. Show them how to do it right and do it well. And so that day I literally went and I quit at the title company, and they were like, we wondered how long you were going to stick here, because we knew this was not for you. And I became a coach in our market center. I had been asked previously to become a bold coach, and just was not in a season of my life where I was able to do that. So got asked again, and sat down and talked with my bride, Elle, who you know. At the time, we had 3-year-old twins. And I thought, as a bold coach, you travel, right? Like 2-3 days a week. And I thought, we can't do that. I had this limiting belief that we couldn't do that. And so initially I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to be a one-on-one coach. That way I can be at home. And it was my wife who stood in our bathroom. I'll never forget it. She stood in our bathroom and she said, you're dying. Like, I'm watching you because you're not fulfilling your purpose. She said, what do you want? And I said, I'm called to coach people, to teach people, to preach, that's who I am. And she said, then we'll figure it out. Go do it. Go be a bold coach. So she's the reason. She's the whole reason. She created this environment for us to be able to do this. And so Kara, that was 2017. 2017. And I went on the journey to become a bold coach, became a bold coach, and gosh, here we are today. Today I'm director of bold.
So within 5 years of becoming a bold coach, now you're running the whole show.
Yeah, became a bold coach. Actually did my first bold it takes a long time to become a bold coach. So I started the journey in 2017. I did my first bold in August of 2018. That was the very first bold I ever did. And what's wild, Kara, is I took bold my rookie year in real estate. So it was January of 2013. I took bold. I had never sold a house.
I was hoping this story would come out.
Yeah. I never sold a house. So in 2013, I'm sitting in a bold room, miserable, divorced, angry, tired, broke, no idea what I'm doing, lost. And I'm sitting there listening to this lady and watching and seeing her life. And I'm surrounded by all these people that are living the life that I want. Right. And I was checked out of bold. I was like, I don't even, like, JD Tomlin paid for me to go. Like, couldn't even afford to be there. Right. And when he paid for me to go, so I had to go, and I didn't want to go. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, this is insane. Like, these people are, and then I'm looking around like, these people have the life I want. And so I leaned in, and in the bold room, you set goals. And I wrote down in the bold room, I'll never forget it. I wrote down, I intend to be a bold coach, and I intend to be married, and I intend to have twins. I wrote all those things down, Kara. I'll never forget it. And every one of those things is true in my life today. And so, yeah, I became a bold coach. August of 2018 was my first bold I ever did. Had the honor of 114 people being in that room that I got to walk alongside for my first bold. And that started the journey for us. That was it. That started the journey for us.
So how did you go from someone who it doesn't sound, you sound like you had a great childhood, but financially it was just average, pretty average life. Right. How did you adjust your financial thermostat to be able? You're also an OP of one of our market centers too. You have so many things going. How did you get from here's my income level to where you are?
Yeah, Kara, I would say I surrounded myself with incredible people, right? Gary teaches us no one succeeds alone. I did the first part of my life on my own, just figuring it out on my own, right? Um, I adopted limiting beliefs that were put on me. They weren't even my limiting beliefs, right? Like I've told this story to you before. I remember when I was 10 years old, my mom said, Oglesby's we just weren't created to make money, right? Well, I believe that. So much so that the first time I ever got my first check in real estate, I sat in my car and cried because I felt guilty because I made so much money. And so I had to get around people who had gone before me who could bring me to that level. So I went on this mission, man, to find people that were living big. And then I just asked them, will you help me?
Did you ever have anybody say no to you?
Never. Nobody's ever said no. No. And I think that's one thing that people miss, Kara, is, like we don't have because we don't ask.
Yeah.
And we don't ask because we're afraid or we're embarrassed. And my pain got so great. I wasn't afraid or embarrassed. I was like, hey, I cannot keep doing what I've been doing. I cannot. So I used to self-destruct every 5 years. Like I can't keep doing this and I need help. And so I just got around people intentionally that didn't coddle me, that weren't impressed by me, that didn't buy my facade. They dug into my heart and they dug into my soul and they dug into my core, and showed me what it looked like to heal and showed me what it looked like to grow up. Right. Like, I just had to grow up. And yeah. And so that to this day, those are the people I just continue to look for is how do I get around people like that? Who know what I don't know, who will love me enough to tell me the truth and keep helping me to push forward. Right. So
taking the directorship of Bold puts you in a whole new room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You are around people now that, wow, what do you expect in the next 5 years?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kara. So I'll tell you this. I've done this for a year now. And what I expect for the next 5 years is to be super uncomfortable. Okay. I think that's why we don't grow, because growth is not comfortable. Right? It's just not, right? Like, my kids are 10 now, right? And when we put them in kindergarten when they were 5, they hated it. They were angry at us, right? Because now they had to do things they didn't want to do. So, and what was happening is they were growing, right? And what happens to us, I think, as adults is later when we get to make our own decisions, we make decisions not to grow. We make decisions to not, I don't, right? Like I don't want to be uncomfortable. I want to be comfortable. And the reality is there's uncomfortable on both sides, right? And
you're hard.
Yeah, that's right. That's it, right? Like, let me tell you something. In the 30 some odd years of my life, when I did it on my own, when I was seeking to be comfortable, I was an uncomfortable wreck, miserable. To get on the other side of that, I want the uncomfortable. I ask for the uncomfortable. And so when I think about the next 5 years, I just think about it in people, Kara, like, man, how many can we help? Right? How many can we help? That's it. Like how many can we make sure that they don't have to go through some of the pain that I went through, right? That they make different choices and better choices. And like we've talked about before, generational choices, right? That they understand the weight of their choices. And so for the next 5 years, for me, it's just how uncomfortable can we get? How much Can we grow? As far as what's next from here, my prayer since I was 16 has always been, give me the opportunity to help as many people as you see fit, right? As many as possible. And so whatever that looks like, that's what we're going to lean into. So yeah.
So I have a little bit of an insider track on you because you're kind of in our world. I realize if you're walking into the grocery store, nobody's like, oh my gosh, it's Dusty Oglesby, right? But in our
They
world,
definitely aren't.
right. But you're kind of a celebrity, right?
Yeah.
So people think they know who you are, but they have to doubt. They have to doubt that you could truly, truly be this man who you're portraying yourself to be. And I'm here to tell you, the rest of you, not Dusty, he knows who he is. He truly is that man. He truly does lean in. And I'm not going to go into a bunch of details, but I lost my sister a couple of years back when we were working together. And I texted him because he was my supervisor and somebody else too. And he picked up the phone and called me. And guys, people don't pick up the phone and call somebody right after something like that because they have no clue what to say. And I know you didn't know what to say, but you carried me through and you loved me during that time. And I'm just one person. You do that for everyone. It's just incredible. I just adore you so much. What are some of the best pieces of advice you've ever gotten?
Yeah. Best piece of advice I've ever gotten. We could do a series on these two, Kara. One would be to go on what you know, not on what you feel. I spent the first 30 years of my life going on what I felt, right? And it led me to a big mess. And I learned to go on what I know and to know that I don't know everything that I need to know, right? And so to always be learning based. And so that those words just rang in my head, right? My spiritual mentor was the one who who said those to me, is go on what you know and not on what you feel. I think the others would just be, it's just in the people that you get around, right? Like we all have defining moments in our lives, right? And Kara, I used to not be anything I said I was, right? Like, it was a portrayal. It was a facade. Like I was a liar and I was a taker and so I think getting into relationship with people that, they just love you enough to tell you the truth. Right. My life is where it is today. It's not me. It's the guidance that I've been given. And then I say that, and I've got to give myself credit in that I made the choice to be accountable. Right. And I think that's what we miss. We don't like, we ask people to hold us accountable, but ultimately people can't hold you accountable. Right. They can hold you to the standard, right? Meaning, like you said, you wanted to be this, but they can't hold you accountable. You have to make the choice to be accountable. And so, I would say, overall those are the biggest things I could say. I mean, there's probably a million things I could say as far as advice I've been given along the way. But I think the root of all that is I've been given advice along the way.
Okay, so you have mentioned that so many times, and it's driving me crazy because I know you have people in your life like this too.
Yeah.
That they are headed into the Inferno. They are about to just do something, and they don't want advice. They don't want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
What do you do with people that you love and you care about that absolutely they're not open like you were?
Yeah. So, I think one is, we never stop loving, right? And, and, you know, you make the choice and the choice makes you, right? And I had to learn early on, being a bowl coach, that I am responsible to people, but I'm not responsible for people, right? And so I'm gonna do my part. Like I tell my bride this all the time. Like when I lay down at night, I sleep really well because I know that I have wrung myself out, right? Like I have wrung myself out for my bride, and I have wrung myself out for my kids, and I've wrung myself out on behalf of the people that the Lord's put in front of me to be able to help. And as long as I know that I have done that, then I've done my role, right? And I also know my journey. You know, like my journey is a journey of, there were plenty of people who poured into me and I didn't listen. You know, who just like, one guy in particular, his name's Wes Butler. He's my spiritual mentor to this day. This dude just, you know, spent so much time with me that you know, probably felt like a pure waste. In fact, one day he told me, stop wasting my time. And I thank God though that he never left. Now he backed up and said, hey, look, you know, don't waste my time. But he never left. He never stopped loving me. He never stopped leaning in. And you know, I mean, it's one of the biggest reasons I became who I am today. So I think, you know, I think we have to know that, right? At the end of the day, I got to look at what can I control, what can I not control. And you know, when I close my eyes here on this earth, I want to know, like, I'm going to know that I did all that I could, right? And it does. It makes you sleep good at night, right? Like, and I don't want there to be some kind of facade care. Like it's not like we have this perfect, beautiful, right? Like, hey, mama and I, like my bride and I, like hey, the wheels come off sometimes, right? Like we argue, okay. There's days we're on opposite ends of the world. My kids don't, you know, like I don't say to my kids, go clean their room, and they're like, okay, daddy, sure, no problem. Yes, sir. Anything else you want, right? Like I mean, you know, we work at it, and we win and we fail and we win and we fail and we learn, and you know, so but that's what I would say for the people that here's what I would say too, for the people that you think aren't listening. Here's what I would say, Kara. Just because it's not working doesn't mean it's not working. There are moments in my life when I was so far from where I should be, it wasn't even funny, that I remember things that were said to me that changed my life. I didn't adopt them then. I wasn't ready to adopt them then. But I've adopted them now, right? And they're the moments I go back to. You know, that those moments changed my life, even though I wasn't listening at the time, right? But
well, thank you for that encouragement for all of us who are trying to help somebody who doesn't seem helpable. It's good to know that maybe they'll catch up to it.
Yeah. You know what? I heard this from Jordan Frieden. I thought this was brilliant. It really challenged me, Kara. He said, anytime somebody says to me that somebody's not coachable or teachable or helpable, I love that word. He said, maybe it's that you don't have the skill set yet to help them. And I thought, man, now that's coaching, right? Because we always put it on them, right? Well, they're not listening. What if it's we're not getting through, right?
Right.
What if I need to draw the circle around me and go, you know what? I'm not getting through to them. What am I missing? Right? Like, so I think we got to look. I think we got to look at both ends, and that's what I mean though by wrung out, right? That's wrung out. That's not just going, well, they don't want to listen. That's going, what am I missing in my skill set that maybe I'm not getting to them, right? So I think that's a great question for all of us to ask.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So we're running out of time. What about books? Books or podcasts? What do you recommend people surround themselves with personally?
Yeah, that's great. So I think one of the easiest is the Maxwell Minute. Like right, like we're all very busy. And that Maxwell Minute every day changes my outlook right immediately. I think anything we can get our hands on when it comes to our choices and our habits is vital. Because at the end of the day, everything comes down to our choices, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't come down to the market. It doesn't come down to other people. It doesn't come down to the government. It comes down to our choices. Okay. Right. And that's what I mean with generational choices. So Atomic Habits, I just over and over and over again. Right. Purpose-driven life. Right. Just understanding who am I? Why am I here? What am I called to? What am I doing? Hal Elrod's book, Miracle Morning. Just anything you can get your hands on to make the choices to become the person that you desire to be, right? I think that's key. I'm a person of deep faith, and so I listen to Stephen Furtick as a pastor that I listen to all the time.
He is fun.
Matt Chandler, the guy I listen to all the time that just, pouring to me. And I would say now more than ever, Carrie, we got to be so learning based, right? I'm on a lot of airplanes. I don't get on an airplane and go to sleep. I get on an airplane and I listen to Matt Chandler, Stephen Furtick, an Audible book, right? Maxwell just came out with Leading in Tough Times. Everybody should read that book right now. Every person on the planet right now who remotely desires to be a leader should read the book called Leading in Tough Times, because that's what we're doing. We're leading, and I think some of the toughest times we've ever seen, and they're not going away anytime soon, right? My leadership has been challenged more in the last 12 months than it ever has been. And I think it's going to be challenged more in the next 12 than it was this 12. And if we think we can do that alone, we're going to epically fail.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. No question about it.
Yeah.
Dusty, I cannot thank you enough for sharing your heart, sharing your time. I hope that people that see this can really, truly understand that this is who you are. And I will attest to it till my dying breath. You are a really good man. And I just love you to pieces.
Wow. Thank you, Kara. I love you so much. And if I'm ever not who I say I am, please tell me.
Deal. Right back at you.
Yeah. Well, hey, I love you. Thank you for the opportunity. Bless you and bless everybody who's listening.
All right. Thank you.